There's a conversation that you've been putting off. The longer you put it off, it's costing you time, revenue, and peace. That's the conversation today. Welcome to Business Growth Blueprint, the podcast for faith-driven business owners who want to grow in profitability, leadership, and culture. I'm your host, BJ O'Neill, the Coach's Coach, a founding partner with John Maxwell Certified Leadership, best-selling author and business owner, and I help equip business owners just like you with the tools to build something great, because every breakthrough starts with a blueprint. Ephesians 4:15 says, "Speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become, in every way, the mature body." Look, this is a tough one because it takes courage. And look, you own the business, or you're an executive, or you're in some type of authority in running the business as a person of faith. And when we ignore tough conversations as business owners, when we ignore the complicated, we're only you think about the time and the energy that we're doing all the things to get customers, to, work with vendors, all whatever. But if we're not clear and we're avoiding, and everyone's personality is a little bit different, and I get that. But when we're avoiding them, we're delaying, and not even just delaying, honestly. We're delaying the inevitable, but we're also creating a mountain of a lot of unhealthy stuff that can put a huge puncture directly into the growth of the business. And so let's take a look for a moment. One of the things that we do with our business coaching team, we've got nearly 1,000 coaches all over the world, over 30 countries, and we talk about profitability. We install an operating system for a business through 12 specific business strategies to improve profitability in small ways to each one, and that compounds. And we see it all the time, where a business that's doing, 7 or 8%, by the way, 8 to 10% is the average profit margin, at least in the US. When you look at that, though, that's not a lot. And so lots of people don't realize 97% of businesses fall underneath 1 million in annual revenue. We don't believe that or don't think about that because we see all the skyscrapers and all the big businesses, the Apples of the world, the Amazons, but that's the outliers. The majority are all the businesses that are in your market, right? You drive down the road and you see them all: the dog groomer, the dry cleaners, the pizzeria. Like, that's the swath of what makes up the economy, right? And so when you look at that, and then, we come in and we help a business to go from, 8, 9% to 15 to 20 or whatever. But then there's the hidden things that puncture the efforts of profitability that go well beyond the actual business strategies themselves. And one big one is, without a question, the conversations that we avoid. All right. So I'm going to give you 3 specific conversations. I'm just going to go on a limb and to believe that you probably are either you're wrestling with one of these, or potentially you're wrestling maybe with all of them. But here's what I want you to do, just from a mindset perspective. I want you to begin to think about, for you, the negative effects every time that you think about the conversation that you're not having, and you know what they are. I want you to also think about, imagine in your moment, for the moment, that you're just kicking the ball down the field. Like, you're never really grabbing hold of it. You just keep kicking it down the field, kicking it down. That's just images matter, right? And so every time you think about that conversation that you're delaying, when you see that, you know that you're not actually making progress. You're just getting rid of it. And you think, I'll just do it tomorrow. We all do it. But those that begin to mature as the business owner, the leader, you're with you and your partner, your business partner or your team, those that begin to mature and wrestle with the uncomfortable are the ones that stand a chance to grow significantly. You think about reality. 80% or so, 90% depending on who you talk to, it's probably closer to 90% of businesses don't make it past year 5. And you ask the question, well, I wonder why. Well, arguably, there's probably a lot of reasons, but a big one is avoidance. All right. So 3 different things I want you to think about. And my prayer is that one of these strikes you hard enough to go, you know what? We've got to deal with this, right? Number 1, ready? The conversation with an underperforming team member. And I sprinkle this in a lot of the episodes because it's an issue all the time. Let's kind of wrestle with why and what should we do. 1, we love people. And this is one of the challenges when we're mission driven as believers, and we're constantly using a biblical framework as the structure of building the business. And we look at people, we begin to we overuse the term grace. And I understand that we got to extend grace. And I'm not referring to people who make a mistake, here or there. We're humans. Mistakes are going to happen. I'm talking about the consistency. And I'm not talking about toxic people. I'm not talking about rude people or whatever. That's an easier one to deal with from as far as I'm concerned. And if I was your direct business coach, I can sit down and say, this is what you need to do. I'm talking about someone who just is not performing at the level that you made the agreement, or you should have made the agreement with them to do. And when we avoid it, here's what we are doing. When we're just avoiding that conversation, we're actually silently confirming with them that they are doing a great job. And that's not fair to them. And so you may look at that and you're like, I just hate to bring it up. Yeah, but not bringing it up, you're letting them know I'm doing a great job. And you've got to be not just honest, candid, and you can do that with humility. You can do it with grace. Say, look, we've got to talk about this. We're just not where we need to be. And you need to develop a plan to help them get out of the ditch. If not, you're just going to make the problem bigger. The second part of that is, depending upon the size of your business and how many team members you have, you are affecting the others that are around that person. Either the other team members, or if they're front-facing, even worse, your customers. You got to stop that. So you cannot allow the avoidance to build. The second thing, the conversation with a client or a customer who simply is no longer a good fit. And we look at that and we're like, we'll lose the revenue. They're a whale, right? And so, again, much like the team member, when we don't sit down and wrestle, and I do think, again, this is where we sit down, we pray about it, and depending upon the different levels of the challenges with that individual and how integrated they are with your business and whatnot, you got to sit down with them and start and just share in the right way, in a candid way. And here's the thing, if you're not used to it, or maybe you just don't feel confident with that style and you never seem to come around with just saying what really needs to be said, you need to get some help, right? You need to seek some counsel on what's the best strategy and the structure of having this conversation, whether that's a consultant or business coach or just some of the peer-to-peer other business owners that well enough in a peer group or whatever, to speak in and just help you to frame a conversation. But what you can't do is to hope. Hope is not a strategy. You can't just hope that it's going to fix itself. You can't just hope that the situation is going to change. Because if you know it to be true, in other words, we're just not, we're not in lockstep, anymore, and it's causing challenges and structures. Not that long ago, well, it's been years, I guess, it's longer than I probably realized. I sat down with a home builder, a pretty large home builder, in Florida as a client, and they had this very issue, and they had they would call a relationship, a brokered deal, that their sales team was actually an outsourced sales team, but sat inside the business. Also physically, they were physically in the building. So it was an interesting setup. So you had team members you had that were employed directly with the company, but then you had this group of individuals that was the sales team that were not employed directly. They were a vendor, and no question about it, they just got out of it. Didn't work anymore, but they didn't want to deal with it because it was a huge project to solve. And it starts with, you just got to, in this case, the avoidance was, if we bring it up, it's going to cause all these challenges in, the salespeople are going to get irritated. That's going to trickle down. I'm like, correct. And so you need to bring it up and you need to move on from them and do it a different way. So if we built out a plan, we made it work, changed their life. And you can probably imagine the number one thing that they said: wished we'd have done it sooner. Avoiding the complicated conversations with the wrong fit customers is not the answer to keep it going. And the third, you ready? The conversation with yourself about what you actually want. I have worked with a lot of business owners over the years, and now today we coach a team of coaches, nearly 1,000 people all over the world. And so we're integrated with a bunch of businesses, all kinds of sizes everywhere. And I can tell you right now, there's a good chance in you watching or listening to this that the business that you have right now is not actually what you want. Either A, it's drifted over the years and turned into something that's not what you want, or you're just exhausted but you're not really sitting down with yourself to do something about it. You're scared. You have a lot of fear. You're like, what if? Look, first of all, you can't do anything about it if you're not honest. And it's okay. Maybe what you've wanted has changed. Maybe as you've matured, or look, maybe you had the idea, you started the business, you're not that far along in it, and it's nothing what you thought it was going to be. You got to have the conversation with yourself. So here's your call to action. Okay. This week, or we'll call it over the next 7 days, because those three things, by the way, I just kind of know how this goes. You're dealing with one or more of them, and they're big, arguably, or inarguably. I should actually pick one and wrestle with it. What needs to be done about it? Pray about it. As a person of faith, you likely have some peer folks or family, whatever, that you do go to for prayer, and find that person that you can invest to be honest and transparent and open, to go, I'm dealing with this thing. I've been avoiding it for a long time, and I know in my gut that it's, oh my gosh, it's so long overdue, and I just I've got to get it. I've got to sit down and deal with it, and ask them to pray with you, to pray that you would have the wisdom, but you would have the courage to actually take action and go do something about it. Okay? I hope this has added value to you, as we talk about on the podcast all the time. Don't let this just be good content. Take action. Change the direction where you see change that needs to happen. Hey, join me on the next episode of the podcast where we're going to talk about this one thing. Stop calling it a slow season. 5 signs it's actually a strategy problem. Join me.
Access more